Hello friends, and welcome to the pilot episode of Final Facts with Alyssa Lite-Chat edition, a lighthearted version of Final Facts with Alyssa where we still cover politics with a little bit more laid-back approach, including a little less coverage on myself. So let's get started. So originally I planned to talk about a couple of different topics that were suggestions submitted to me by followers. I do want to eventually make videos about these. We were going to talk about owning one's sexuality, having a discussion on the validity of sex work, and of course breaking down capitalism and how it has led to so many folks who have had to sacrifice their health and even their lives during COVID. And we probably will get to that point, I'm sure, a little bit today. But there is something very important I want to talk about today in regards to the Republican reaction to the coronavirus and the quarantine and the epidemic as a whole. So recently I've been seeing almost every Republican happily jump on the selfish freedom over collective equality train. And what's worse, there's actually some of them out there really justifying this by comparing a quarantine during a pandemic to the actual Holocaust. So to break this down, we're going to have our first ever guest on the show via FaceTime. Please welcome Alyssa with a high school diploma. Hey Alyssa. Alyssa with a diploma here. Happy to be on the show. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really digging the low-key and loungy vibes. Well, thank you. I have to say I am loving it too. As you know, we are going to be talking about Corona being compared to the Holocaust with the quarantine and all that going on. So go ahead and just give us a couple opening thoughts to get us started. Definitely. I think this should go without saying, but you know, since I'm you with a high school diploma, I'll go ahead and start with the basics. That asking most folks to stay within the comfort of their own homes and to wear masks in public during a pandemic is nowhere near the same as disenfranchised people being forced into gas chambers to literally die. I've actually seen this being correlated, Alyssa, no lie. I've seen them too. We've been seeing them too. And of course, you know, the irony within that is that it's always these same people, in my experience, who, when you want to talk about other issues, if you want to talk about comparing this to a Holocaust or Nazis, these same people will call nonsense anytime you bring up concentration camps at the border, or anytime you bring up, I mean, even right now, we are literally seeing in real time during all this going on, the Trump administration fighting for policy that will literally, legally legitimize discrimination in healthcare against the trans community. Like, you're literally disenfranchising an entire group of people in real time, denying them healthcare, but yet you want to talk about the Holocaust right now. Exactly. Yep. And within that, you have 30,000 detained, over 32,000 detained in those camps right now, still in the midst of everything going on. The last numbers that I saw, only 500 or so, it wasn't even 600 out of over 30,000 that had actually been tested. In fact, ICE has literally been fighting rulings, essentially saying they have total power over what goes on in these camps right now. And you want to talk about the Holocaust, really? I'm actually glad that you brought up the irony of all this, because one thing that hasn't really set right with me about seeing these Republicans and reopen protests and having it framed as the GOP suddenly being advocates for everyone's rights, it just, yeah, it's not, that's all. That's so fake. That's so fake. Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you brought that up. And I think I see where you're going with this, so I just wanted to pop up a tweet that I had saved. So I'm going to put that up real quick. It's a tweet that really kind of sums up the Republican argument for all this right now. So let me just go ahead and put that up. Oh my gosh, love that tweet. It's literally like you read my mind. We won't even go into the whole, I can't even go into the whole Republican narrative that says protesters are thugs, they're lazy, it accomplishes nothing at all. Even my personal favorite, advocating for running protesters over with their vehicles. I mean, can't even crack that one open. It's a whole video in and of itself. Girl, preach, you are not wrong. It's true. It's true. But really, but you see, you have these people out here protesting. You have these Republicans protesting because apparently now it's going to work for the causes they support. Now protesting will apparently work. But, you know, they'll try to tell you, no, the cause that they're protesting, it's not they want haircuts again. It's not that they don't value the lives of the sick and the elderly and the disenfranchised. They're protesting because they suddenly claim to care about inequality issues in America. But my question to the majority of them is, where? Like, where were y'all before COVID-19 when almost all of these same inequalities have always taken place? Like, before Corona, every time I brought up so many identical issues, I was scoffed at and told they were all fake news. You are absolutely right. I have to say, it is just so foreign to me to see Republicans try to make points out of being concerned for people starving or, you know, record unemployment, for this massive unemployment. But the thing is, like, now you're talking about this, but before COVID, the facts were all there before COVID. 1 in 5 children in America went to bed hungry before COVID. That was already happening. You may have had this record low unemployment, but does that matter when we have wages that have been stagnant for decades? When we have, you know, most millennials that are making the same amount that our parents made at our age, but we sure don't have the same cost of living. And then you have so many American workers that are working multiple jobs, not because they want to, they're working multiple jobs just to survive, because you can't cut it off 40-hour work weeks. You gotta work 60, you gotta work 80 hours, even with 2 people in a home. It just doesn't cut it. And then not only that, but before COVID, we had almost half of all families, almost half of all Americans said that they would not be able to come up with $400 for a sudden emergency. These are all facts that Republicans did not even care about, but now they claim to care about this type of stuff. Which I have to say, you know, all of those facts that you just listed, they're undeniable at this point. Because if those weren't accurate, if those statistics were not on point, how are we seeing the very results of such numbers in real time? I mean, if we were in the greatest economy before COVID, why did it only take a week for it to be in shambles and now permanently damaged? We all know that even a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever it is, when, you know, this is over, quote unquote, there's going to be substantial, significant damage for a long time to come. And, you know, I do have to say personally, I love the faux concern for mental health, mental illness, and drug overdoses. Listen, healthcare is a right, and focusing on rehabilitation over punishment when it comes to our criminal justice system is the most efficient solution to these issues. And again, leftists have been aggressively fighting for such things and been scoffed at consistently and told it's a pipe dream and like that these things don't matter and that those people don't deserve it. But now suddenly you care about those people. It's so weird. You know, that is so true. And I feel like it is just the same for this Republican outrage over civil liberties being trampled. And here, though, civil liberties actually means, you know, my right to break the law when I personally find it unjust. They say to take care of their families, but in reality, we know it's because they want to go to the beach or get a haircut or drive their loud truck obnoxiously in the Sonic parking lot, or, you know, yell at their local Chili's waitress. We all know that's what you really want, but, you know, just you do what you gotta do. Tell yourself what you gotta tell yourself. And I can't help, let me just add to that. I can't help but add this, that, you know, the people who really care about taking care of their families and their neighbors are the ones that are advocating for realistic stimulus relief, rent, mortgage suspensions, anything in that arena. This idea that we're stuck in a binary situation where the only options are don't reopen and ruin the economy, or reopen ASAP and sacrifice probably hundreds of thousands of lives in a doomed attempt to save the economy, it's completely false. That choice, that whole idea that it's only between those two is totally false. Right, exactly. We have the ability to create a third option where we value the safety and well-being of ourselves and all of those around us. It is possible. Instead of giving these bailouts to the top 1%, we can provide stimulus relief to families and individuals instead of focusing on this arbitrary concept of an economy. We can focus on creating a society where food, water, medicine, shelter, all of these things are necessities and they're taken care of. We can create that. And you know, I think it really also boils down to something else that I've actually been seeing across the political spectrum, right, left, even in the center. This sentiment has kind of been making the rounds, and the idea is that, you know, despite everything going on, yes, this is crazy, this is madness, this is an unprecedented time, but in the midst of all of that, that this is the first time in a really long time that almost everybody has been able to read or spend extra time with their kids and family, or cook more, or do some hobby, like something that they enjoy that they don't ever have time to do. Like, they finally can do these things. Like, they can finally do literally so much of what actually makes life worth living. And all of these things we have pushed to the side to make room for this everlasting pursuit of wealth and basing our identities in a job. I just, I feel like that we are past the point of quote unquote going back to normal. And that is, at the end of the day, what these reopeners want. That's what they're fighting for, to go back to normal and to go back to this time when they weren't personally affected by all the issues in this country that are now being exposed by the pandemic. There is no going back to normal. That is not something to be fighting for right now. Which brings us back full circle to our original grievance, the audacity of people to actually compare this plight to Holocaust victims. I mean, for real, if the closest thing that you've ever experienced to quote unquote oppression is being required to take health measures for the safety of others, please take several seats. And for those of you who are non-essential workers and you're just fiending to get back to work, really, I think now is the time for you to sit back while you've got the time and reflect on what it means to live in a country that will fight to force you back to work in unsafe conditions, but won't fight or even give a care in the world for you to have education or healthcare or even access to housing, any of that. Really think about that. Think about the side you're on and what you're fighting for. It really makes you wonder, or it should make you wonder, are we free? Are we actually free in a place that demands we have to sacrifice the majority of our lives, like almost all of our lives, like so many hours out of every day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. We have to do all of that just to have a roof over our heads and eat? And even more so, was the way we were running things successful if the middle class was already gone? There's no arguing. There is no middle class. I mean, if there was a middle class, we would not have the facts that you were just talking about earlier. The reality of most Americans is this. They don't have $100,000 or $200,000 to buy their house outright. They don't have 20 grand to buy the car they're driving down the street. Hell, some folks don't even have $1,000 to put down on their cell phone. It's all just a string of payments permanently tied to you keeping a job so you can continue making payments. The second you lose a job, the entire thing crumbles. All of the necessities of life have been set at a luxury price. I mean, I think some of these protesters are freaking out because they're realizing it. Like, they criticize the poor and the working class for not being prepared with a few months worth of expenses and emergency savings, yet their small businesses and revenue streams rely on those workers and consumers, and they themselves didn't think to prep for emergencies. It's just so hypocritical. It's so hypocritical. Like, if you don't have enough money to save your business, don't expect me to have enough money to pay my rent. Really? Well, this really just goes back to my favorite catchphrase that I always love to say, and that is, if this is how the system is, then the system deserves to be obliterated. I am just one of those people who thinks that the stability and the wealth of our country should be judged by how we treat the least that reside here. It should not be judged on the fact that we have produced someone like Jeff Bezos, who through massive exploitation of the market is now going to be the first trillionaire. It's not something to be proud of while we have people starving. This seems so basic. But anyway, is there any closing comments you want to give before we sign off? I do have just a few for you. You know, something I've thought about a lot that I wanted to bring up today is how honestly these reopen protesters and folks comparing, you know, a quarantine to the Holocaust, it really doesn't surprise me. I mean, it has always been the prerogative of the white man to conquer and take as some divine right, regardless of who gets stepped on or killed along the way. Christianity, manifest destiny, slavery, internment camps, Jim Crow, police brutality. It is so wild for the folks of this exact lineage to dare accuse any group of doing to them what they've already had an entire history of doing. Oh, the caucasity. Just never really surprised by it anymore, to be honest. Well, we really, really appreciate having you on, Alyssa with a high school diploma. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming on our first pilot episode. Same, it was really great. Thanks so much for having me. Bye! And thank you guys all at home for watching the pilot episode of Final Facts with Alyssa Lite-Chat. Please let me know what you guys thought in the comments. If you dig it, if you didn't, whatever you'd like to see, discussions in the future. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And if you would like to see more content like this, you can also check me out on OnlyFans. All links will be below in the description. See you guys next time. Bye!